So clearly she has departed the Overton window, which means the discourse that she is expressing now is shocking people to the point people, even anti-Semites, are going, "Whoa, that's way too far." But they go, "Whoa, that's like the Klan's going, that's insane." They wouldn't even know the Frankists or anything like that. But what people have missed is the theological background that just exploded in her own life. She was a Protestant. She held to what's called Reformed theology, which is kind of a Calvinism, which is fiercely anti-Roman Catholic. Her husband, George, is not just a Catholic. There are many wonderful Catholics who love Jews, who love Israel, who, Rudy Giuliani, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, these are all very religious Roman Catholics. But there is a iteration of Roman Catholicism, which is often called traditionalist, which sounds like traditional, but it really means something much more than that. That's what her husband belongs to, and that's what she joined. The traditionalists believe that essentially all of the popes since Pius XII, Hitler's pope, were completely illegitimate. Just a little background, in 1958, Pope John the 23rd becomes the new Bishop of Rome. And as it turns out, he was perhaps the most pro-Jewish pope in history, one of them. He coordinates the Second Vatican Council. Who cares? Why is that germane? The Second Vatican Council produces a very small but very significant document called Nostra Aetate, which literally means in our time. The point of the document is to turn around the Catholic Church's view of the Jews. Now, it's not a 180-degree turnaround. It's like the Roman Catholic Church suddenly becomes pro-Israel, anything remotely resembling that. However, what it does say is that the Jews today are not culpable, are not responsible for killing Jesus. The Jews are our elder brother. Anti-Semitism is a sin which the Roman Catholic Church rejects. The portrayal of the Jews in Roman Catholic liturgy, for example, Good Friday. So you're probably, when you think of Good Friday, you're thinking of, well, getting ready for Shabbos. Well, no, that's not what they mean. Good Friday,
getting ready for Shabbos, and you have a good kiddush before.
The child, I can smell the soup, honey. It's great. The challahs are hot. I'm going to davening. That's not what Good Friday. Good Friday, when I was a child, I'm a little older than you. When I was a kid, Good Friday in Brooklyn, you didn't walk around non-Jewish neighborhoods because there was a time there was a lot of anti-Semitism. This was also the case in Europe and so on. It was a day, according to their tradition, Jesus was crucified. It means the following Sunday is Easter, and the Jews killed Jesus. And in the Good Friday liturgy, the Jews are referred to as the perfidious Jews, as the treacherous Jews. So that liturgy is now removed by the church. The point is that the Roman Catholics did not accept it. They consider this complete apostasy. And therefore they reject the current Pope, and they reject Pope John the 23rd. They reject the Second Vatican Council. And they only believe that Pius XII was the last of the legitimate popes. And therefore they hold, the technical term is, translated means the seat, or the seat is empty, means that the throne of Peter is vacant. And this iteration, this is Mel Gibson's type of Roman Catholicism. So this iteration of Roman Catholicism, of course, intersects with anti-Semitism, conspiracy theories about Jews and so on. It doesn't mean every single person who believes this is an anti-Semite, but this is a natural petri dish which Jew hatred could metastasize. Now, a point that's very intriguing here. Everyone missed this, and I know for the viewers, even for Christian viewers, will not understand the ramifications of all this. So she believed in Reformed theology. It's not just Protestantism, but it's a Calvinism. Calvin was fiercely anti-Roman Catholic. He held that the Pope was the Antichrist. So to go from Reformed theology to Roman Catholicism, and not just any kind of Roman Catholicism, but the most conservative type of Mel Gibson's Roman Catholicism, is mind-blowing, and that's exactly when she did it. One other point that should be made, and that is her husband, George, comes from a rather prestigious family, and her father-in-law, Michael Farmer, he's a lord. He's He's a person very distinguished, and he's a conservative evangelical Christian, a member of the Anglican Church, and he's very pro-Israel. So this is very intriguing. Her husband was raised in the Anglican Church. He converts to this very conservative Roman Catholicism. His father is a Protestant evangelical Christian, and the evangelical church is divided. I know this is complicated for you, but the Church of England is divided between the left-wing liberals and the right-wing conservatives. The right-wing conservatives tend to be very pro-Israel. So his father, who is an evangelical Christian, is very pro-Israel. George is not, and George hangs out with people like Taylor Marshall, all these ultra-conservative traditionalists. And when Candace did this, again, I don't watch her. This is not my thing. My thing is religion. When she went from Reformed theology to his Roman Catholicism, and she joined her husband, I knew immediately this was a nightmare. And now all this, these ideas, some of them are very weird, are emerging from her.
Yeah, I mean, some of those weird ideas include the Jews being behind 9/11, the Jews assassinating John F. Kennedy,
right?
Just blood libel after blood libel.
Right. So I just should explain one thing. I want the viewers to understand this: that all of these, we call them all these wonderful things that are being expressed, they have a little bit of truth to them. You know, any lie, and it's important because we're going to talk about things that are not being said rather than regurgitate everything that's out there. Every lie that gains traction has a scintilla of truth to it. So JFK's father was a big anti-Semite, and he himself did want to stop Israel's nuclear program. He was thoroughly committed to it. When he was assassinated, his vice president that he didn't care for, LBJ, happened to be someone who was rather pro-Israel. And there's theological reasons for that as well. I mean,
I know, but what's the truth? I mean, there's no truth to the fact that
the truth is that Israel benefited from it.
Yeah, but I mean, what she said is that Israel was responsible for it.
Exactly. That means what happens is there's this little thing that Israel, it's just an intersection. What happens is JFK is killed. JFK was set to stop Israel's nuclear program. Look, when she talks about the USS Liberty, that was attacked by Israeli forces. So that was a tragic case in the beginning of the Six-Day War of friendly fire. Look, we have every week we have Israeli soldiers that are killed in friendly fire in Gaza. It happened in the United States. Cops in firefights shoot other cops, and sometimes they get killed. That doesn't mean cops are trying to kill cops, right?
Right.
So the USS Liberty was a tragic case of mistaken identification during the war, and that stuff happens. It happens now almost daily in Gaza. It's a tragedy. A lot of Israeli soldiers are shot by other soldiers. Doesn't mean they're trying to kill each other. Right. So what the anti-Semite does is takes that and runs with it and runs the conspiracy theory. But there is always a slither of truth. There was a crazy psycho sect led by a psychotic individual, Jacob Frank, in the 18th century. No one ever heard of this. I mean, unless you're really very well studied, but it was an insane cult that ultimately converts to Roman Catholicism that was into the most insane stuff in the world. The anti-Semites run with that kind of crazy stuff. And unfortunately, she is regurgitating this stuff.
Well, she's going in a place. I mean, I saw recently reported by the Jerusalem Post that her father-in-law, you know, who you referenced, came out and pro-Israel. He spoke, you know, even after her comments. So she's taking this to a place that he nor his son have gone.
Right. So there's actually an organization called Anglicans for Israel. I'm not kidding. So the Anglican Church is the iteration of Protestant Christianity that's closest to Roman Catholicism in practice and traditions and liturgy and so on. Just it doesn't mean they love each other, but the Anglican Church today is completely divided. And I'm please, if you're a Reformed Jew, don't be offended. I don't mean it. But I need to explain this, everyone to understand. So what happens is the Anglican Church has its conservative end, and its conservative end is like Orthodox Jews, right? Tradition and so on. And then you have the liberal end of the Anglican Church, which if you looked at a service, you might not even notice the difference. Just like a Reformed temple, the only very striking difference is the men and women sitting together as an organ, possibly. But there's a saying Torah, and they're using, you wouldn't right away get it, except for the men and women thing. So it's very important for your viewers to understand the Anglican Church is completely divided into essentially two churches. One ultra-conservative, and the ultra-conservative are evangelicals, and they tend to be very pro-Israel. Conversely, the liberal and very dominant part of the Anglican Church, they're generally very anti-Israel, or I shouldn't say anti-Israel, that's a little too strong. It's certainly an environment, because it's sort of the left, it's an environment that's conducive to not being friendly to Israel. And that's why you see the Archbishop of Canterbury, recently made some statements about the International Criminal Court that were rather shocking. But that's why you can have an Anglican that's very pro-Israel and an Anglican that is unfavorable to Israel. I'll use that. I don't want to go too far with that. It's not like the Catholic traditionalists. So That's why Michael Farmer is very pro-Israel, and his son George, who's Candace's husband, is totally the other way. And she embraced the Catholicism of her husband. That's what's critical, not of a father-in-law.
Interesting.